Yeah, I'm Joan Arnold, and Joan was one of my four older sisters, the youngest of my four older sisters. So we were 2 years apart.
My name is Wendy Hunter. I am the director of the detox unit for ComQuest.
My name is Matt Calder. I am a counselor and unit manager at ComQuest Detox at Altman Hospital.
I met Joan Arnold a really long time ago. Probably it was around 1999 to 2000. I was a very young supervisor at a local domestic violence agency, and she was working at Quest. And we met at some meetings. Some people who go way back with us will remember the fun we had. Note the sarcasm. Learning how to do outcomes and report outcomes to the local board. And Joan and I both worked with women and women that had substance use, trauma, domestic violence backgrounds. And so she and I bonded at some meetings early on in my career. And that's where I got to meet the infamous Joan Arnold.
When we talk about Joan, I think about her. She had an eternally young spirit. Even as an adult, she loved all the kids' toys, and her house was decorated for Christmas in a whimsical kind of way, like a little kid would want their house to look like. So a collection of Santa Clauses, and then in the basement, balloons hanging from the ceiling. Not just balloons, but decorative balloons, sort of like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang kind of stuff, and just whimsical kind of stuff like that. I think she was the happiest when she was playing with her nieces and nephews when they were little kids. I mean, that was really who she was and where she was the happiest. She played guitar and with her nieces and nephews would sing songs, and they'd gravitate around her, and the rest of the would be somewhere doing something else, and she'd be entertaining the kids. So it was always that, but especially with kids, and just a kind of a youthful exuberance. That was her wheelhouse. That's where she wanted to be.
Joan was my counselor about a little more than 8 years ago when I first came in to get treatment for my disease of alcoholism and drug addiction. I was an IOP with her, and when I first met her, she was probably, the 20th counselor I had met in my life, and all of them I had manipulated, cajoled, sold. That wasn't as bad as everybody thought I was, but not Joan.
So I told everybody, I couldn't have been any prouder of what she was able to accomplish. So she got in trouble while she was at Bowling Green. So she spent a one full year, and then the next year they invited her to leave because of substance abuse issues, and unfortunately she would get depressed, and so suicide was an issue. And so they addressed that, and she had to leave, and she came home, and I was still there. I was still in high school, and I didn't treat her any different. I mean, she came home, we had a ping pong table in the basement, and we were playing ping pong all the time, and then she went to Sylvania to an in-house rehab spot, went through that one time, came back, and never had a relapse, and dedicated the rest of her life to helping other people. She graduated from Mount Union, and unbelievably to me, because I had to study in college, and when I had to study, I had to do it sober, and she was maintaining a high grade point average even during her non-sober days. But went to Mount Union and it did great, and she took it seriously and changed her life, and then her whole life's work was trying to help other people see the same thing and reach the same level of recovery that she had.
Joan was a kind soul. She was gentle and caring and compassionate. We could give her the toughest clients, and some with some really significant temper issues and anger issues, and she was just so calming and so good with them. And they would come in and ask for Joan. That's the one thing that I always remember, is that some of our most difficult cases Joan could take on and just work her miracles with them. And she cared about every client that came through the door. People respected her, staff respected her. She was fun to be with. She had a good sense of humor. And, I loved working with Joan. We were both supervisors together, and we shared the same stress and the same day-to-day fun and nonsense, and anything that came through the door was never the same day twice.
We had some stories certainly online after she passed away that were on our website, and people just saying the impact that they had, that if it wasn't for her, they may not be alive. I mean, that was the story at the end of the day, and that was very, obviously impactful for her to affect people that way. She would always zero in on people, and I'm not saying she tried to save everybody, but she was extremely caring and worried a lot about people that were in a difficult situation, and would go to lengths beyond, I think, what most people would to make a difference and help them. That was her very nature with everything.
Joan's groups. When I first group, I remember feeling like I didn't belong. Didn't belong amongst these people. I was very judgmental, very resentful. And Joan's version of empathy, again with the cold hard truths of where I was at, made me see that I did belong. She made me accept a lot of things about myself that I wasn't willing to look at. It started with another group member confronting me, telling me I was, and I'll leave out the expletive, stupid. And I looked at Joan, and she gave me a look like, and I said, okay, Joan. And from that point forward, I loved that group. I looked forward to that group. I looked forward to seeing Joan every morning. 3 groups a week, and I was immediately going to 2 meetings a day in addition. In that, everything changed. You know what I mean? I started getting a sense of self. I started feeling presence in the world again. And it was because of her. I followed her. And knowing what I know now about the group therapy process, I can look back and know that eventually I became the leader of her group. A newcomer would share something, and I'd look at her, and she'd look at me, and she'd go, and she'd let me go at it. But I learned to do it with empathy and with realness and earnestness, without being judgmental or beating people up. And it just became this, it was this wonderful chemistry we had. So every year in my anniversary, I immediately, my first thought when I wake up on March 6th is Joan, and I'm very blessed that I walked in Market Avenue that day and met Joan.
Joan was somebody that any of us could go to and ask questions about recovery, her own personal recovery she was willing to share. She had such knowledge about the road to recovery and addiction and the disease and what it did to the mind. She was a great teacher. I sent many graduate level interns to her. She was the facilitator of a 5-day IOP, and so we would put our interns with her. And I'm really proud to say that majority of those interns have grown into incredible counselors with independent license, practicing still either with our agency or in private practice. And they'll owe a lot of their success.
Joan met me, she had empathy, yet she could give me the hard truths too. It was a perfect mix, and I immediately trusted her. She had credibility with me right from the get-go. Generally, she just met me where I was at, and she asked me to follow her to where I needed to be, and it was easy for me to follow. I just trusted her.
Well, we used to tell her. We would tell her all the time, I don't know how you do what you do. I'm a funeral director, and people think what we do is so difficult, and at times we go through a lot of stuff. But what she saw in the people that she wasn't able to save, and the hurt in her heart for that, is more difficult than what I have to do. I don't know that I could deal with that every day the way she did for the amount of years that she did. So, great job. I don't know how you did it, but I couldn't have been any prouder for the way she cared for people, and the way she never had a relapse, and yeah, just a lot of pride.
Well, again, first and foremost, it's about meeting them where they're at. You know what I mean? Not judging, but not letting them get away with manipulating the truth or glossing over things. That initial session with Joan taught me my initial session, or couple initial sessions with a client, is all about gaining that trust right off the bat. And there's a mix, a good mix, and you just feel it and you know it when you got it, of empathy and truth. And it's made all the difference. I mean, I think about her all the time, you know, especially when I'm with a client for the first time and they're really in a bad place, because I was in a bad place. And, you know, when I can say to them, I know where you're at. I know how it feels. I know a way out if you want to follow me. You know, even if I don't say it in those words, that's what I try to put off. And that's from Joan. 100% from Joan.